be a negative 10x engineer. We used to always make this joke at Netflix that we had a lot of 10x engineers. All the 10x engineers just made 10x more work for everybody else. Plus 10x engineers may be mythical, but negative 10x engineers exist, absolutely. To become a negative 10x engineer, you simply needs to wait 400 engineering hours per week. Combine the following strategies. This is great. This is great. Nullify the output of 10 engineers. Change the requirements as far into development as possible to avoid blame, obfuscate requirements from the start. Okay, that's pretty good. That's pretty good, but I would call this. I would just call this regular work. This sounds like a scrum master. All right, create 400 hours of busy work. Ask your team to perform tasks that resemble work. Common examples include presentations, diagrams, ticket management. Create pointless rituals. This is so good. Oh, you just got kicked in the Agile right there. No, man, Agile's really good. Or, let me just hold on 1 second. Hold on just 1 second. You know what I think we're missing? Let's have a retro about how our last week went. Let's just talk about it because I feel like there's some complicated things there. Boom, 1 hour across 5 people. You just went, you literally got over 1% of your goal in a single phrase. Think about that for a second. 400 hours of burnout turnover. Okay. Be thankless. Foist blame. Sow confusion. Get angry. Cause others to work overtime. Interesting. Okay. One time I had this thing that I still to this day am a little bit salty about. To this day, I'm still pretty salty about it. I'm still very salty about this. Okay. I'm very salty. Okay. I'm going to be real here. I'm actually pretty dang salty, and it's like 10 years later. Okay. I was working at a company called Workiva. I won't name anybody, but one of the teams decided to make a change to their software. And the change was that they're going to have a default options have a certain set of things on it. So therefore, they're going to reduce some set of production bugs by having default options contain certain values. And here's the deal. They didn't tell anybody, and they published the software under a patch version. You're probably thinking, why was it a patch version? Well, the original input to this was in Python, of course, and when you originally instantiated this had to do with kerning of characters and all that. When you originally instantiated it, you could pass nothing in, and it would instantiate. But not all the default options were filled in, so they just made their own default options, right? They just did their own thing and just threw it in there. Now, here's the deal. They didn't change any interface at all. So since they did not add to an interface, that's not minor. Since they didn't break a contract, it's not major. It's a patch version. They only changed inside the function, but they literally changed it. I forgot to turn off the alerts. Thank you, Lithium. They changed it inside the function. So new defaults came out of nowhere. They just chose defaults that they decided. And so, of course, they published it. We pulled it into production, and the next thing you know, I am off trying to fix some stupid-ass bugs in production, and I go over and say, yo, what's going on here? It's like this whole thing changed. And they said, what do you mean? I'm like, it used to work in 0.8.1, and it doesn't work in 0.8.2. What happened? And they're like, oh, we changed the defaults. And then I said, why didn't you bump that like as a major change or a minor change? They're like, oh, well, the interface didn't change. And I was like, no, but it really did change, like implicitly, like you're changing what was happening. And they're like, no, it didn't change. We're not going to do it. And so like I've had something like this happen where it's just like you sow confusion, you create people to go work overtime to go figure out some nonsense because things are breaking in production all over the place. But there's absolutely like, sorry, that's how Semver works. And you're like, no, it's how Semver works, but no, it's not. No, it's not, Lithium. You're not working overtime with me. And I just, oh man, I hated it. I'm still salty to this day, and it's why I hate Semver. Like to this day, I hate Semver because of that. It's an incomplete thing. When people dogmatically follow Semver, it's the worst. I think you should just simply follow it like the heart, not the letter, and it goes way better. It would have been more obvious if the defaults were part of the contract. It wasn't, though. That's what caused this whole argument. Hold 10 engineers hostage in a technical discussion. Oh, man. This is actually why I got burnout, and this is why I quit Netflix. Let engineers discuss ideas. Encourage them to pursue elegance over pragmatism. Ensure nobody has the authority to make decisions. Okay, no. So I'd go the other way around. So I don't think he's quite doing it. I don't think he's quite doing it right here. You don't want that. What you want is you want to find the most idealistic engineer possible. And then I want you to make them, you want to make them architect, but you don't want them to code. And then you let them change their mind once a week about everything in the pursuit of elegance over pragmatism. I quit Netflix in 2016. I joined back in. But I'm just saying this. This was like 2016 or 2015 or 2017, somewhere a long time ago. And it was just like, I still remember that, where, man, we would have these 4 engineer meetings, and every single 3 days, it was like a new thing was needed. And the amount of times I rewrote an algorithm is mind-numbing. I felt emotionally painful by the end of it. Like meetings rec calendars. To inconspicuously waste others' times, write lengthy messages, documents, and share them as widely as possible. Welcome all opinions and aim for engagement. Oh my goodness. Okay, so this is actually, this is like hilarious, because this is definitely, Netflix is a very largely document-driven culture. I see this quite a bit. It's like, it's impossible. It's impossible. It's impossible. I hate that. I hate that. Eventually everyone's life becomes documents, and it's just the worst. I try to avoid it as much as I can. Waste 10 weeks of wages on cloud costs. Ooh, this is a good one. This is a really good one. This is actually a really good one. Write slow programs. Avoid DB indices. Write single-threaded programs on 16 core machines. Opt for exotic hardware with fancy RAM and GPUs. Store the data on RAM/disk liberally. Don't compress anything. Pay no attention to data layouts. All right, so I do actually have something in here that I think is really, really good. So right here, run single-threaded programs on 16 core machines. Actually, I think this is actually a really good take. It's one of the reasons why I like grep over RG and over these other multi-threaded solutions, is that I think if you're running just grep, you're probably doing it wrong. Learn how to use parallel. You control how much searching you want to be able to do and where. And so I do a lot of things where I like writing single-threaded programs intentionally and heavily relying on standard in and standard out, and then using parallel to do all of the, all of that, like threading through multiple lines, right? Like if you really write a good set of tools, you can have parallel these things, parallel these things, parallel these things. No, see, the parallel green threads, no, not green threads. It's the program, parallel. GNU, parallel. I really do love this thing. It is fantastic, and it's like Xargs, but multi-threaded, right? It's really, really nice. And so the more you actually, the more you end up using this, I find that I actually have a really, like, if you write your tools right and stupid and just use one thread well, you can really massively parallelize your tools without the high effort of every individual tool being parallelized. Because one of the problems so one of the reasons why, like, here, I know we're on a tangent here, but check this out. I'm going to just grab this thing. All right, we're going to go like this. So you have, tool 1, right? It can be whatever you want. And you have tool 2. Tool 2. And let's do one more tool, right? And you have tool 3. And so what you're going to do is tool 1 will go off and create a bunch of threads to do its work, right? Because this is kind of like the RG, these other things, right? You get a lot of these, right? And they just create massive amounts of stuff. And as they're done, they're piping out their input into tool 2, right? Well, tool 2 also is like, you have 6 CPUs? Well, guess what? I'll use all 6 of your CPUs, or whatever it says, right? And then now you have the exact same problem going here, because each one has their own threading model. And then you have another problem, right? So each stage in your pipeline just massively spawns things, and all of a sudden you've made this kind of crazy thing, or you have to build in a threading model that takes in numbers, and then you have to manage the numbers yourself through all this, which is just super annoying. It's just like not fun. So instead, what I've been doing is getting rid of all of this, and I just go, Do you like that I've chosen this turd brown color? I feel like this turd brown color just really speaks authority, right? I've been doing parallel, right? Like parallel, parallel 5, right? Parallel 5 this, and then just run parallel and pipe these into each other. And so I just have these 5 streams of running data, so that way as one thing completes, it flows into the next one, which flows into the next one. So I'm getting these completions faster, and I'm not like completing one pipeline or one set of the tool fast and then pushing everything through, right? I like it better. And so usually all my programs always start with something like cat, right? I feel like cat is just the place to start with, right? Some sort of cat, right? Meows in a bunch of session IDs. And then from my session IDs, I flow them through the system. And I really feel like if you build tools like this, it makes life a lot easier. Compose your tools. Don't build it in. You know what I mean? This is Excalidraw. Personal opinion, though, again, very personal opinion. Some people will strongly disagree with that, but that's kind of like a tool design choice. You know what I mean? So anyways, this is great. Create useless tools. Oh, I've definitely done this. Decide that an existing solutions aren't quite what you need. Write scripts that only one person understands. If the script does something important, avoid documentation. Okay, so this is a hard one because there's definitely there's definitely a problem with this one. You can't always go on paved path. But I totally get this, right? The documentation less important as much as just, depends on what you mean documentation. How to use the tool, very important. What the tool does internally and like code documentation, I've never looked at. I don't know. I like this that there's this whole problem. If you work at any sufficiently large company, there's more and more domain knowledge tools. You know what I mean? Like at some point you have to do it. And there's just no way, you know what I mean? There's just like no way you can avoid it. I don't know. So that one's really hard. This one I feel like is a hard one that every company struggles with of a certain size. Add 400 hours of compilation build time. This is great. Slow builds waste time and incurred compound interest. As build times increase, developers are more likely to distract themselves. Ensure that developers are context switching. Yes, this is beautiful. Yes, you only need it to take that long. Whatever the mean time or the median time to Twitter usage is, go like one quantile higher. If the 50 percentile, or if the 50 percentile is say like 3 seconds, and that's what causes half the people to go to like the 75th percentile. What's going to cause 3/4 of the people to become distracted? If you can hit that, you're doing good. That wastes huge time. Write pointless tests. Oh, I love this. Create dependencies on particular variables without testing the underlying functionality. Mock function calls until no original code runs. Introduce subtle randomness into your tests so that they succeed or fail without. I'd say that if you're going to do this, if you're going to do it, if you really wanted to do this, I wouldn't say write pointless tests. Let me hold on. What I would do is I'd write a series of tests that actually have a bug introduced intentionally into it in a very subtle way, such that when you fix the bug, it will cause like 25 tests to fail. And so it becomes excessively hard to figure out where you went wrong and what is broken about each one of these tests. You know what I mean? Now that, to me, would be way more insidious because then it becomes harder and harder to fix tests. Yeah. Waste 400 hours of engineering on bad architecture. Oh, this is an easy one. Oh, dude, this one is simple. Just follow React's current guidelines. Remember when they said higher order components were the way? Yeah. If you've ever seen a 10x engineer become a million X engineer, higher order components were that. Higher order components were the first ever million X engineer. Ever. It has literally destroyed the universe. Oh man, that was such a nightmare. That was like the most nightmarish thing of all time. What's the problem with HOC? Dude, HOCs create the greatest debugging nightmares of all time. Just the worst. Every time you can add in one more HOC is every one more confusing debugging way you get to go about things. It's beautiful. All right, 400 wasted hours on deployment. Okay, create as many environments as possible. Production and staging must differ wildly. This is actually really funny. It's actually really hard to have a staging that is like perfectly aligned to production. I feel like this just happens. If you have a staging, it's wildly different than production. Launch fragile code with fragile build systems. Yep, this is great. Beautiful. Lose 10 weeks of wages on unhappy customers. Okay, this is easy. Just have simple bugs crop up repetitively. Simple ones, right? Worthless documentation. Oh, I love it. Oh, I love it. I love when you enter into a file and there's like a 10-line explanation of the code, and it's like the simplest code you've ever read in your lifetime, and you're just sitting there like, why is this all here? Or you have code, or you have these files that are just like these large swaths of comments and these like single little bits of code, and you're just trying to figure out what the hell the thing does. Oh, beautiful. Trap 10 engineers in futile Skunkworks projects. Okay, attract bright engineers and waste their potential. Undersell the difficulty of the oh yeah. Oversell the project's usefulness. Tell management it's almost complete until they scrape it. I've seen this happens a lot. I built the wrong tool once, and this happened to me. I did this on accident. So, to be fair, sometimes this just accidentally happens. Add dependencies that demand 400 hours of maintenance. Oh, I love it. Engineers individually learn each library. I love it. I still remember Ramda made it into Netflix codebase. Ramda. I love currying. Everybody else should love currying. Ramda. Never admit failure. Drown your team in sunk costs. Ignore 80-20 compromises that can improve your circumstances. I love it. Delay pivoting is always... This is actually such a real one right here. If you can delay pivoting, you can destroy a project. Like when you know something's wrong, hire 10 0x engineers. Oh, is this the bozo explosion that Steve Jobs used to talk about? For those that don't know, there's this old phrase that used to happen. This used to be like a big thing people used to talk about, but now I think it's like no longer politically correct to talk about, but they call it the bozo explosion, where effectively you hire top tier talent, right? You hire 4 A's, but then on accident you let 1 A minus in, right? And now that you've let 1 A minus in, well, A minuses can spot A's, but an A minus might accidentally, like indifferently see, they might accidentally see a B plus as equivalent to themselves, right? And so now you have a B plus that sneaks in, and then your B plus makes the same mistake. It might see a B as the same as an A because it doesn't really know, and then you keep on going, and eventually your organization is only filled with C's and D's. And so there's this like big thing that Steve Jobs kind of pioneered. I believe he was the one that called it the bozo explosion, but that was kind of like the big thing that it was like the mantra of companies in like 2010 era was don't hire A minuses because you'll create a bozo explosion. It was very, very funny. But really, if you do hire one, like, because the thing is I mean, this is a really good point though. If you do hire a couple bad engineers will let through more bad engineers. It's a really hard thing. Hiring is just super hard in general because it's really hard to tell the difference, right? I barely can tell a difference. We're all bozos at some point, exactly. Everyone's a bozo at the same point, right? You know what I mean? Like, I'm fine with bozos. The thing is, my big thing is when I'm hiring someone, I'm going to go on the inverse on this one. When I'm hiring someone, what I really do look for is someone that is just thirsty. That's it. If you can just at least hire someone that's curious and constantly learning, you're going to get the right talent eventually. And that's all you really want. When I say thirsty, I don't mean like Twitter thirsty, okay? That's a little different, you know what I mean? Hire 5 -1 engineers. Don't settle for dead weight. Actively hire engineers who cause catastrophes and resist learning. This is funny. Prevent 10 -1 engineers from getting fired. Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. Vouch for bad engineering. Yep. Incur 400 hours of bug triage. Make undebuggable programs. Plaster layers of abstraction over everything. Write spaghetti code. Make everything sensitive to initial conditions. Avoid peer functions. Use dependency liberally. Say it works on my machine whenever possible. You know, there's one thing I've always wanted to do is that I believe if you could make enough preprocessor macros in C to make it impossible to understand that you've just created math or like true equals some random number is greater than 0.05 or whatever it is. You can make true false in the most completely undetectable way that no sane engineer could look at, and you could write the craziest bug ever that only shows up every 1,000th try. right? I believe it's possible. I truly believe it's possible. You could do a define. Yeah. But I don't know how. I've always wanted to try to research like how to create the most insane bug. I'm sure someone's done it. That's borderline terrorism. Exactly. It's pure evil. But I think it'd be really fun because you can always read out of dev random, right? And you could always get a random number no matter what, you could find some way to get a random number. Find some way to make it super, super small and just screw somebody, right? But it only screws them. Yeah, exactly. That's pure evil. But I think it could be really fun. Yeah, I think so too. I think it could be really, really fun to see, like, can you create a preprocessor macro that is like a series of macros that are a series of macro spread out over like 15 files, 20 files, and eventually make it zero in on define true, false every now and then. Yeah, but this one, I mean, that one, the whole replace semicolon with a Greek question mark, that one, the problem with that one is that one's always a bug. You want something that doesn't always do it. Like it's a rarity. It has to, like, you have to do something so magical that you can't, it only shows up every now and then. That's where the true magic happens. You know what I mean? That's where the true magic happens. Something that's not yeah, exactly. You don't want something repeatable. Yeah, exactly. Anyways, this was a great article. These are all great things to do. Honestly, there's a lot of these things that you can just avoid. I personally say that just in the industry, at least everything I've been a part of, the biggest way to avoid a lot of these is just be more pragmatic in discussions right away. Avoid people that like to pontificate. You know what I mean? Just avoid that. If there's people that love bike shedding, don't work with them. Just go, no, I don't want to do that. Tell your boss, be like, this person bike sheds constantly. I can't do it. Like, help me avoid working with them. Just literally go against bike shedding. Bike shedding is just the worst. I hate it. I don't do it. I don't like to do it. I don't want anything to do with it. It is so annoying. The end. Okay?